What's up, everyone? Welcome back. This is our mobility series, and today we are getting prepped for the deadlift. So we are going to go through a handful of different movements that are going to help prepare the body to go through that hinging pattern and to move weight off of the floor. So we can do this two different ways. You can either go through each movement in sequence, or for today, for simplicity, we're going to do each movement individually for 2 sets of each. With any of our mobility or prep work, you have the option to do this as many times as necessary. Think about it like dosing. So if 1 round made things better and 2 rounds continues to make things improve, you can do 3, 4, up to 5 rounds, whatever you need to get really prepared to go and have your best workout. Today, we're going to do 2 of each. You're going to need some equipment to get started today. We are going to need a bench or a sofa or a couch, or we'll need a band or a cable system, and that's pretty much it. The rest will be pretty straightforward. So we are going to get started. We're going to start with the elevated pigeon on the bench, 30 seconds on each side, 2 sets. So we can get that set up. We want our shin in line with our bench. We can think about starting to sink into that hip. We can move around a little bit, especially if this is the first round, first thing you're doing today. This might be a little bit stiff, so definitely take your time with it. We want to focus on breathing. We can think about leaning or hinging the shoulders forward, since that's what we're going to be doing today. We're trying to get that hip prepared to get into that hinging position. So I'm not just folding over and compromising my back position, because I want that to be prepared when we get into that deadlift. Okay, let's switch sides. So a bit of a shorter time period with each stretch that we're doing today, because we're not really focused on changing, tissue length, which takes 60 seconds to 2 minutes plus. What we're trying to do is just tell the body that we're getting into these positions today. So we're just exposing the body to some different ranges, some different positions. So just think about moving around a little bit. Think about how this position is going to improve your deadlift pattern. And let's switch sides again, going back to the first leg. So we are spending 30 seconds on each side here. We should notice, hopefully, we're getting a little bit more range, like either able to get that knee down to the ground, a little bit closer to the ground, or we're able to bow forward more, right? And we can explore, find different areas still, work your way through that hip. You may feel a stretch on the inner thigh here. You may feel a stretch on this back hip. The main thing is we are just priming the body to get that weight off the ground. Good, let's switch sides one more time. 30 seconds here. And I got my timer going, so you just follow along with me. Don't have to worry about setting the time for yourself. That's the bonus of doing this live. So find some of those spots, work through them, hinge forward, drop the knee, whatever you feel like you need. Give this another 10 seconds. Now for this structure today, if you're feeling like, man, I could benefit from 1 or 2 more rounds of this, feel free, just either rewind back a little bit or just mark the time for yourself. 30 seconds each side. You can do up to 2 more rounds of that if you're feeling like that was really beneficial, and you can use some more of that. Next, we're going to do a supine twist. So we're going to start to open up continue to open the hips, open up the low back to help us get into those better positions again. So we're going to start this on the floor. We want to have enough space that we can move our legs side to side. So we're going to lay down. Knees are at about 90 degrees. Hands can be out to the side. We're going to rock over to one side. We're going to hold or breathe for a couple breaths. And then we can come back to center, move to the other side. So you might even get some releases happening here, like in the back. You might get some cracking. But this is also going to help lengthen out the lat, which is a big role in your deadlift and a big role in stabilizing the back and the hip. Good, come back to center, over to the first side again. Couple of good breaths. You can think about like expanding this rib cage out, right? You may continue to feel that stretch in the hip that we just found in that elevated pigeon. Okay, let's go back to the second side now. Breathing. Try to keep your knees together as best you can. I'm going to just switch my position so you guys can see some different angles for this. Okay, let's go to the first side. So I'm trying to keep my knees together, doing my best to get my feet, get my knees and my feet on the ground. I can even sort of look away from my knees. Maybe just give a little bit of a different stretch. Let's go back to center. Switch over to the other side, second side. Nice breathing. Now at this point, we should be feeling like we can start to move on from this, like we're not still getting that same intensity. But you can use your opposite hand to kind of pull that knee, top knee down towards the ground. Focus on breathing, just give us a little bit more range. Let's do one more on each side. So about 4 on each side. Use that top hand to pull that knee down. You may feel that more in the hip or in the glute. You may feel it more in the ribs of the lat. And let's go one more time on this second side. Breathing. You can look away from this side. Using that top arm to pull the knee down towards the floor. And let's come on up and out of that. So the next thing we're going to do is a hamstring rock. So the hamstring is very important in our deadlift. We want to make sure that it's mobile, that that tissue has got some length back to it, that it's ready to do some work for today. So we're going to get into a half kneeling position. If you need something under this back knee, go ahead and grab that now, maybe a pillow or a foam pad or even a yoga block. We're going to focus on this front leg. So to the best of our ability, we want to keep our whole foot on the floor the whole time. If we need to raise that toe off the ground, that's okay too. But what we're trying to do is lengthen out the back, the glute, and the hamstring. So we're going to go hands down on the ground, and we're going to focus on shifting our weight back into our heel and straightening out this front leg. So I call this a hamstring rock. You can call it whatever you like. But we're just going to work back on lengthening out that hamstring. We're going to do this 8 times on each side. 3, 4, and if you feel like it's opening up, you can move the back knee a little bit further back. 6, and push forward as well. 7 with the hip. One more time. 8. Good, let's switch sides. Same thing, start short, right? Half kneeling position, hands down. Let's rock back. 1, and then just gradually move that back leg a little bit further back, potentially with each rep, maybe not. 4, 5, just try to open that hamstring up. 6, 2 more. 7, 8. Good, let's go back to the first leg. I'm going to do it sideways this time so you can just see a different angle. So from here, we're going back into that hamstring, forward into that hip. 1, 2, 3. So you can think this is like top of the deadlift, bottom of the deadlift. 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Switch sides. Same idea. Hands on the inside of the foot. Let's shift our weight back into that hamstring. 1, 2, pushing forward. 3, can lengthen it out a little bit more. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Good. Same concept here. If you feel like that was good and you need a little bit more of that, feel free. Do 1, maybe 2 more rounds on either leg. Next thing we're going to do is a hip airplane. So now we're going to start to work on stabilizing the hip in 3 dimensions. So we're going to go from standing on one leg. We're going to hinge or bow forward. I like to think about this as like the Simpsons drinking bird. Anyway, we're going to break at the hip, raise our back leg as the chest comes forward into this single leg deadlift position. Now, this may be a good spot for you just working back to our starting position, shifting or bowing forward into our bottom position. If we can progress this, the goal is to get this to go into this third dimension and open that hip up, bring it back down. So if you're good, let's continue. We're going to try to go 8 reps on each leg. 2, 3, and you can be doing this single leg deadlift if this hip airplane is not super stable for you yet. 4, 5, 6. I'm thinking about shoulders and hips and toe all moving together. 7, 8. Good. Come back to the top. Let's set up and switch sides. If the stability isn't awesome yet, you can always hold on to something to help you move through that pattern if you're just about almost there. If it's really hard and we're not getting any kind of rhythm to this, do the single leg remaining deadlift with support. Same thing, if it's not quite there, like we're just almost there, we can hold on to something. If it's not really there, go and do a lunge. So just from here, straight up, straight down, it'll still stabilize the hip, but we get a little bit more quality movement. So let's do the other side now. So we're gonna bow or hinge into position, and then we can start to open that hip up, shoulders, hips, and toe all moving together. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2 more times, 7, 8, and back to the start. Good. Okay. Take a second if you need it. We're going to go back to that first leg again. Now what you might notice is like your butt is starting to activate. Right? So this glute med is a stabilizer of the hip. We want to make sure that that is active before we start to pull weight off the floor. So now let's go back to our first leg, whichever one you started with. Hinge into position, shoulders, hips, and toe all move together. 1, 2, and it's okay if the foot is moving around, just making those adjustments to be stable through the hip. 3, as long as we're not dancing around too much. 4, 5, 6, 2 more times, 7, 8. Good, and like I said, if it's not the hip airplane, it should be the single leg deadlift, which is just going into that starting position and back up. If it's not there, then we want to be doing a split squat, okay? So one of those 3 options, the hip airplane is sort of the top option of those stabilizing movements for the hip. Okay, let's go other leg, same thing, hinge into position, and then let's open up away from that leg, toe, hip, and shoulder all moving together. 2, that way the movement is coming through the hip and not through the spine. 3, 4, just really nice and controlled, gradual movement. 5, 6, Last 2, 7, and last 1, 8. Good. Come on up and finish that position. So hips stable now. Now we're going to move to stabilizing through the core. So being in that hinged over position takes a lot of core activation. So we're going to get the core working before we start lifting the bar. So we're going to do a long lever plank. And what that means is we are in our standard plank position, but our hands are ideally above the shoulders, which is going to demand more activation through our midsection. So we're going to hold this for 30 seconds, and we can do this 2 to 4 times. So everybody ready? 3, 2, 1. Let's go up. So we can start in a standard plank position if we'd like, and we can walk the hands further away from the shoulders, and even ideally like above the head here. So I'm tucking my tailbone between my legs so I can squeeze my butt. My shoulders should be down and out of my ears so that my lats are slightly active. And I'm pushing my rib cage down so that my abs are on as much as possible. So let's take a quick rest there. Couple good breaths, but I'm creating the tension. I'm not just hanging out there to do this for time or something like that. We want to be efficient with your prep work. One way that we can do that is to internalize how much tension we're creating. So let's get up and we'll do that again. 3, 2, 1. This time really think about flexing the butt. Squeeze your butt, tuck your tailbone, brace your core, push the ground away. Breathe and brace every time. Breathe, brace. Breathe, brace. Breathe, brace. So we're creating a ton of tension through the midsection. We should be potentially shaking here, at least working super hard. 3, 2, 1. Come on up and out of that. So if you're someone who generally potentially rounds through the back in your deadlift, do this one another 1 to 2 more times. Really make sure that your core is on and active before we start pulling that bar off the floor. Okay, last thing for the day. Or before we get into our deadlift. So if you have either a band attached to a chin-up bar height is pretty good, or if you have access to cables, both options are great. I'm going to do first set with the band, second set with the cable, so you guys can see what it looks like. So it's going to be a lat pull through to start to get the lats active in pulling the bar towards the body, which we'll see basically the whole time. We want to be active through our lats to create stability in the hip and the back. So option number 1 is the band. So we're going to be hinged over, arms basically above the head, and we are pulling down into our thigh or the knee, keeping the arms long the whole time. We have the exact same concept with the cable. We're hinged over, flat back, arms long, and we're pulling down into the top of the knee or the mid-thigh and back up. So I'm going to do my first set with the band, then I'll do the second set with the cable, and you guys do whichever option you have available to you. If you don't have either of these, or you don't have something high enough to hook this up to, you could always do this with a dumbbell in a dumbbell pullover, almost getting the same effect, but just making sure that your rib cage is tucked down and your abs are on to carry over from that long lever plank. All right, so let's get started. So we want to take the band, kind of create a big triangle with the band, just like we would with the rope. And we're going to do 8 reps here. So we're going to pull down and away slightly with the arms. We want to make sure that we can feel the lats with each rep. 2. So really active. 3, chest out, which is a cue that's going to carry over into the actual deadlift. 4, and then from the hands here, we're also thinking about trying to bend the band, which will carry over into bending the bar cue that we're going to use, which is creating external rotation at the shoulder. 6, 2 more times. 7, One more time. 8. Good. Okay, quick rest. With all this stuff, we're talking about being efficient, right? So we're not just doing reps, random reps, maximum, we're not just trying to do garbage. We're trying to bring really high quality to what we're doing in our prep or in our warm-up so that when we go and do our lifts, we are really ready to go. So this isn't just boom, 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 doing 8 reps. It's doing 8 high intention reps, making sure that we're getting the lats activated, making sure that we're priming the position that we're going to be in when we pick that bar up off the ground. Okay, let's go second set now. I'll show you this time with the cable. Same position. And I want to think about pulling down and out slightly. Okay? So I want my lats working. I want my shoulders in external rotation. And I want my chest out. 3. And you can feel how your back gets really active when you go through this. 4. Super beneficial going into our deadlift. 5. 6. 2 more times here. 7. 8. Good job. All the way up. So bringing that high intention to all the movements that we're doing. So we just showed 2 rounds of each of these movements to get you prepped for your deadlift. So we went through elevated pigeon, supine twist, hamstring rock, hip airplane, long lever plank, and the lat pull through. So now we can start to move over to the strength series to do our deadlift for today. So I hope that helped you guys out, helped you get prepared. If you do this again, you can do it the same format, of course, or you can also go through those movements sequentially. So go hip airplane, supine twist, then hamstring rock, then hip airplane, then long lever plank, then the lat pull through, and then repeat that from the top again. And you can kind of see how your cardio and conditioning starts to get built in to your prep work, and you guys are going to be ready to just rock and rip that bar off the floor for your deadlift. So looking forward to seeing you in the strength series, deadlift workout next. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you soon.